To our amazing viewers at Midnight Affairs Tales, welcome and thank you for your presence. Makes these stories worth sharing. We'd love to hear which part of the world you are joining us from. Let us know now in the comment. Let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. The airport was quiet for a Thursday night. Ethan's boots hit the floor with the steady rhythm of a man who had marched through hell and made it back. No bands, no welcome sign, no family, just a flickering street lamp outside arrivals and a broken Uber app. By the time he reached his driveway, the lights in the house were off. Strange. Jessica usually left the porch light on when he was away. It had been 7 months. He exhaled, gripped the keys a little tighter, and stepped in through the side door. The living room smelled like candles, lavender, the kind she only lit for relaxation. There were 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, one still full, one with lipstick. His gut tightened. From upstairs, muffled voices. He moved quietly, muscle memory kicking in. Step over the 3rd stair, it creaks. He was not supposed to be back until Friday. Jessica's voice. Clipped. Nervous. Then another man's voice. Relax. Just play it cool. Ethan's pulse thumped in his ears. Each word felt like a blade pressed deeper. At the top of the stairs, the bedroom door was cracked. Just enough. He saw shadows move. Clothing. Her giggle, half forced. Sheets rustling. Ethan did not need more. He stepped back. He wanted to storm in. Demand answers. But something colder took over. Discipline. Observation. He walked down the hall, grabbed his duffel bag, and stepped out. No confrontation. Not yet. Because now, this was not about love anymore. It was about truth, control, and making sure the enemy did not see the bullet coming. How do you confront betrayal without becoming a weapon yourself? Wait, let me speak to you from the heart. I pour my soul into every single story you hear. The late nights, the edits, the voiceovers. This isn't just content to me. This is my purpose. But here's the truth. Out of 1,000 viewers, barely a handful actually subscribe. And that hurts, not because of numbers, but because I know many of you feel these stories the way I do. So I'm asking, if this story made you feel something, anger, heartbreak, chills, please don't just leave it here. Click that subscribe button, not for me, but for this community we're building. Your one click helps me keep going. It means the world. To those who've already subscribed, thank you from the deepest part of my heart. And when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I've got a real surprise just for you. Now, let's get back to the story that brought us together. The next morning, Jessica stood in the kitchen, acting like everything was fine. She flipped pancakes and asked if Ethan wanted orange juice. Like nothing had happened. He watched her closely. Who was here last night? She paused, just for a second, then smiled. Are you serious? She scoffed. You come home early without telling me, and now you are interrogating me? Do not make this about you, Ethan. His fists clenched. There were 2 wine glasses. Jessica rolled her eyes. I had a friend over. You think I am cheating because I had company? A male friend. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. And maybe if you were home more than once a damn year, I would not need friends. Ethan said nothing. He just stared. Every second she lied. It chipped away at whatever was left of the girl he married. She walked over, pressed a hand to his chest. You are overreacting. This is what war does to men. It messes them up, makes them paranoid. Maybe you should talk to someone. He stepped back. Her hand dropped. You do not get to gaslight me, he said quietly. Jessica scoffed. Gaslight? Jesus, Ethan. You have been watching too many damn movies. You think being a soldier makes you some kind of saint? You are not a real man anymore. Not since you came back. The words dropped like lead between them. Ethan said nothing. He grabbed his keys, walked out the door, and drove straight to Chris. Because now it was war. Chris Jordan opened the garage in his tank top and boxers, rubbing sleep from his eyes. You are early, man. I need help, Ethan said. An hour later, they sat at Chris's desk, looking at a stack of burner phones, hard drives, and USB sticks. Ethan paced like a soldier about to breach a building. She is lying to my face. I heard the guy, but she is playing it like I am the one losing my mind. Chris looked him over. And you are telling me this guy is Brandon Keller? I do not know. I just know something is wrong. Everything feels wrong. Chris pulled up Jessica's public social media. Vacation pics. Brunches. One tagged photo with Brandon. Captioned, "Working overtime with my favorite boss." Ethan's jaw flexed. Later that night, he sat at the dinner table. Jessica brought over a steak. Burnt. Charcoal black. "Thanks," he muttered. "You like it well done," she said, distracted by her phone. I said medium. She shrugged. "It is not a big deal." That steak sat untouched while Ethan watched her scroll through Instagram, laughing at some meme. She was sitting across from him, but she was not there. Not anymore. That night, while she showered, he searched the laptop she forgot to log out of. One message thread stood out. No names. Just a saved number. He suspects. Not yet. Good. We are almost there. He screenshotted it all. Sent it to Chris. And in that moment, Ethan made a decision. He was not going to confront her. He was going to bury her with the truth and make sure she felt every ounce of what it meant to betray a soldier. 2 nights later, Chris texted at midnight. Got him. Ethan met him at a gas station off Highway 6. The lot was empty except for a flickering streetlight and a Dodge Charger with tinted windows. Chris passed him a tablet. Security cam footage. This is Brandon Keller, 53 years old, CEO of Keller Dynamics, a mid-tier real estate firm. Divorced. Known for blurring lines between personal and professional, if you get what I mean. Ethan swiped through the images. One froze him. Brandon, hand on Jessica's lower back, leaving a restaurant. Her smile, wide, glowing. The smile Ethan had not seen since before his last deployment. Another image, them entering a luxury hotel. Jessica was laughing. She was wearing the necklace Ethan bought her for their anniversary. His grip tightened around the tablet. How long? Chris shrugged. Hard to say, but she has not been discreet. He is cocky. Probably thinks you are a dumb vet. Ethan stared at the dark highway. He is about to find out how wrong he is. Chris raised an eyebrow. What is the plan? Ethan took a breath. No emotion. No chaos. I want him exposed, legally ruined, professionally humiliated, and I want her to watch it all burn. Chris nodded slowly. Cold War. I can work with that. Back at home, Jessica was asleep. Ethan stood at the doorway for a long time, just watching her. She looked peaceful, innocent, but he knew now she was a weapon in disguise, and she had already fired the first shot. The difference was, Ethan knew how to finish wars. The next morning felt like a stage. Jessica played the doting wife, making French toast, humming along to music. Lily sat at the table, giggling with syrup on her cheeks. Ethan played along, but every word, every glance from Jessica felt like a lie wrapped in sugar. Later, as Ethan packed a bag for the gym, Jessica appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You are acting weird, she said. Is something wrong? Ethan zipped the bag without looking up. No, she laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. You know, this whole soldier act? It is tired. You are home now. And honestly, it is like you are half here, half gone. You are not even a real man anymore. He turned to her slowly. What did you just say? I said what I said, she snapped. You are broken. You flinch at loud noises. You stare off into space. You come back expecting this house to freeze while you are gone. Life moves on, Ethan. His fists clenched at his sides. Say that again, he said quietly. She shrugged. I already did. The room was silent. The air between them, tense, electric. Then Ethan nodded. Good to know where we stand. And he walked past her, calm as stone. In his truck, he breathed hard. The steering wheel trembled beneath his grip. That was it. The final crack. The woman who once cried when he left for war now spit venom about the scars he brought back. She did not know it, but the clock had just started ticking. Ethan and Chris launched their plan like a mission briefing. They called it Operation Homefront. First, Chris set up surveillance. A private cam across from Brandon's office. Another near the hotel Jessica frequented. all tied to a remote cloud drive Ethan could access anytime. Second, they pulled Brandon's digital footprint, emails, invoices, LinkedIn connections, even old social media profiles. It painted a picture of a man who loved two things, money and attention. He is laundering money through multiple vendors, Chris said. Small amounts, spread across fake consulting accounts. Guess whose name is showing up in the background? Ethan looked at the screen. His name. Jessica is helping him, he asked. Unknowingly, or knowingly. Either way, they are dirty. And if we time this right, you will not just win. You will bury them both. At home, Ethan played the role. Calm. Present. A little quiet, but nothing alarming. Jessica thought he had accepted her mood swings, her distance. She had no idea every smile he gave was bait. That night, he watched live footage on his phone. Jessica stepped into Brandon's office. Closed the door. Curtains drawn. Ethan's pulse did not race. He just saved the video and labeled it. Affair confirmed. Now it was time to hit them where it hurt. Not with a fist. With truth, evidence, and the public humiliation they both thought they were too clever to deserve. The war had begun, and Ethan was not coming for revenge. He was coming for justice. Ethan waited until Jessica left to meet a friend from work before opening her laptop again. He had memorized her password the week before, Lily's birthday, followed by JK. The irony cut deep. Inside her email, most things looked ordinary. But when he searched by Brandon Keller's full name, results popped up that she had deleted. Almost. He dug deeper, checking the trash folder. There it was. Hotel is booked. Same suite. He suspects anything? No. He is just tired. Clueless as usual. Ethan stared at the screen. His heart did not pound this time. No adrenaline. Just a low burn behind his eyes. More messages followed. Payments to Brandon's business. Jessica approving wire transfers. Some were even signed off under Ethan's joint account authority. His name. His liability. He copied everything. PDF exports. Screenshots. Then backed it all up to a secure drive. That night, Jessica returned home humming. Her makeup was still fresh. The same perfume she used to wear for their anniversaries clung to her like mockery. How was your meeting? Ethan asked without looking up from the couch. She froze for a second. Fine. Just grab drinks. Work talk. He nodded, eyes on the muted TV. Glad it was productive. She smiled, relieved by his calm. But Ethan saw it now. Every smile was a mask. Every excuse a tactic. He watched her disappear upstairs, walking like she had already won. But the next move was his. And she was walking straight into checkmate. It started with a letter from the bank. Dear Mr. Marshall, your overdraft protection has been activated due to a recent transfer of $14,500. Ethan read it 3 times before picking up the phone. Sir, your account has had several transfers over the past 90 days, the rep explained. Most of them authorized online. Here, I can read a few out. By the time the call ended, Ethan had a spreadsheet of transfers totaling over $42,000. All to vague vendors. Consulting services, strategic advisors, marketing fees. Every dollar moved with Jessica's login. She had not just betrayed him. She had used him as a financial mule, as a camouflage for Brandon's laundering. Ethan brought the info to Chris the same night. They spread the printouts across his garage table. This is enough to start legal fire, Chris said. You ready to burn them? Not yet, Ethan replied. I want her to feel safe. Untouchable. Let her think she is smart. And then, we ripped the rug. Chris smiled grimly. Damn, you really were trained for psychological ops, huh? Ethan stared at the column of numbers. Cold. Quiet. I just want the truth to hit her like a bullet. That night at dinner, Jessica acted sweet again. She brought him a beer. Touched his shoulder. You know, maybe we should take a trip, she said. Reconnect. Like before. Ethan looked up, met her eyes. That sounds perfect, he said. She smiled, fully unaware. Ethan had never needed many people. But in war, you learn who you can bleed beside, and who disappears when the bullets start. Chris was solid. But he was just one man. So Ethan made a call to someone he had not spoken to in 5 years. "Derek," he said, as the voice picked up. "I need eyes. Quiet ones." "Thought you were dead," Derek replied. "What happened?" "Not dead. Just buried under lies." Derek exhaled. "Tell me where and when." The next day, the three of them met at a range outside Houston. It was private, no cameras, just dust, targets, and silence. Ethan explained everything. The affair, the money, the manipulation. Derek, always the quiet one, said nothing until the end. "You want this cleaned legally or messy?" "Clean," Ethan said. "But I want her reputation burned to the ground when we are done." Derek nodded. "Then we make her the architect of her own collapse." Back home, Ethan found Jessica watching a documentary on war veterans. "Oh, look," she said, patting the couch. "Something for you." He sat beside her, watched how she pretended to care, watched how she talked like the wounds of war were something cute to point at. He forced a smile. "This one ends badly." Jessica leaned her head on his shoulder. "I know," she whispered. "But you are strong." He looked straight ahead. Yes, he was strong. And he had brothers watching every angle. This was not a broken marriage. It was a battlefield. And she just brought a knife to a sniper fight. 2 weeks. That is how long Ethan played the perfect husband. He cooked dinner twice. Sat through Jessica's rants about her office drama. Even let her convince him to go out for drinks, just to feel normal again. Every moment was calculated. Every smile a mask. Behind the curtain, Chris and Derek were building a case like a tactical assault. They planted a GPS tracker on Jessica's car, coated with enough anti-signal tamper to make it look like a manufacturing glitch. They installed voice capture in the kitchen's overhead vent. Jessica loved to talk after wine. "Brandon said he would take care of the rest," she said one night. "He said once the money clears, we can start over, without the pity party husband." Ethan listened from the garage, jaw locked, hands shaking. Not with rage, but focus. Chris labeled that file "Start Over." By the end of the week, they had hotel timestamps, audio logs, financial records showing fraudulent vendor payments in Ethan's name, 2 separate recorded phone calls between Jessica and Brandon planning how to manipulate the divorce for custody leverage. Chris looked over the folder and whistled. "We are sitting on a bomb," Derek added. "But you dropped this all at once. It looks like revenge. We need to feed it piece by piece. Let her lie under oath. Then we show she perjured herself." Ethan nodded. "So we wait." He returned home that night to find Jessica watching TV with Lily. Ethan sat down beside them. "You seem happy," Jessica said, glancing sideways. "I am," he replied without blinking. "Everything's coming together." It started with a phone call from Jessica's lawyer. "Your wife has filed for divorce," he told Ethan flatly. "She's seeking full custody and exclusive ownership of your joint assets, including the house." Ethan did not flinch. "She's claiming emotional instability due to military trauma," the lawyer continued. "There's an affidavit from a psychologist you never met." Ethan laughed once. "Of course there is." They scheduled the first hearing 2 weeks out. Jessica played it cool. She packed a few things. Told Lily it was just a little break. Told Ethan this was best for everyone. He said nothing. The night before the hearing, she approached him in the kitchen. "Ethan, you know they won't let you keep her," she said, motioning toward Lily's bedroom. "They do not let ticking time bombs raise kids." He turned slowly, looked her dead in the eye. "You want a war," he said. "You are about to get one." Jessica smirked. "Bring it." At court, she walked in like a celebrity. New suit, fresh hair, her lawyer grinning like this was a done deal. Ethan walked in calm, quiet, holding a plain folder. When her lawyer painted him as unstable, withdrawn, and emotionally volatile, Ethan said nothing. He let them talk. Then, he passed the judge's folder. Inside, timestamps, financial statements, GPS logs, clean, organized, all tied back to Jessica's phone and her activity. Jessica's face barely moved, but her eyes? They flickered. The judge looked over it, then glanced at her. We'll reconvene tomorrow. And Mrs. Marshall, I advise you not to dispose of any electronic devices in the meantime. Outside the courtroom, Jessica hissed at Ethan. You had someone following me? No, he replied. I had someone watching you. Jessica escalated fast. By the next hearing, she had painted Ethan as violent. She submitted photos, fake bruises, dated inconsistently. Her lawyer referenced old texts where Ethan apologized for being distant. Twisted context. Fabricated threat. Ethan stayed still through it all. But his lawyer stood. Your Honor, may I present evidence that refutes Mrs. Marshall's claim entirely? They played audio. Jessica laughing about how the bruise makeup looked almost too real. The courtroom was dead silent. Ethan never looked at her. That afternoon, Jessica's lawyer pulled her aside and whispered furiously. She looked back toward Ethan with a different kind of panic now. Control was slipping. Later that evening, Jessica returned to the house unexpectedly. She walked in like she still lived there, grabbed a bottle of wine from the fridge, and just stared at him across the kitchen. You are not supposed to be good at this, she muttered. Ethan leaned against the counter. You thought I was just the guy who took bullets. You forgot I learned how to plan wars. She poured herself a glass. No words. Just that vacant look, the kind you get when the mirror shows you who you really are. You still think you are going to win? She asked. No, Ethan said. I am not trying to win. I am just making sure you lose the right way. That night, he tucked Lily into bed. She asked if Mommy was staying. No, he said gently. She has things to figure out. Like puzzles. He smiled softly. Yeah, but this one might take her a long time. And outside the room, Jessica stood in the hallway listening. Silent. Afraid. For the first time. It was Chris's idea. Kids' toys, he said. Best place to hide surveillance. No one ever suspects the bear. Ethan took Lily's old stuffed bear, one that had not left the shelf in months, and carefully fitted a micro-cam just beneath the bow tie. Motion activated. Crystal clear audio. 2 days later, Jessica showed up at the house again. Unannounced. She played her role well. Friendly, cooperative, even flirtatious. Claimed she wanted to co-parent peacefully. But that afternoon, after Ethan stepped out to pick up groceries, she made a call from the kitchen. The bear recorded everything. No, he has no clue. The lawyer said as long as I look composed, I will get Lily by the end of the month. Just keep things quiet until then. Pause. Do not worry. Once the house is mine, I will refinance the equity and push the rest through the shell account. No, he will not get a dime. Chris reviewed the footage. Sent it back with a simple message. Checkmate is loading. Ethan watched the footage again later that night, while Lily slept. Jessica's voice echoed through his phone, sweet and vicious at once. He saved it under the file name, Mother's Intent. This was not just infidelity. It was premeditated erasure of him, his rights, and their daughter's stability. But now she was on record. The deeper they dug, the dirtier it got. Derek traced one of the fake vendor payments through a third-party marketing firm. On paper, it looked legit, but the back end told another story. Bounced funds, false invoices, and redirections into Brandon Keller's private accounts. Jessica had authorized the transfers using Ethan's credentials. Chris mapped it all into a flowchart. The board looked like something from a Homeland Security raid. Names, arrows, bank records. Ethan stared at the line that circled back to his identity. They used me as the financial shield, he said. Chris nodded. That makes you the victim, and them the criminals. It was no longer just divorce or betrayal. It was federal fraud. They packaged everything into a digital case file. Timestamped videos, screenshots of email correspondence, transaction logs, a full forensic audit. Ethan's lawyer reviewed it and leaned back, stunned. This is beyond divorce court, she said. We are talking about wire fraud, conspiracy, possibly money laundering. Good, Ethan replied. Let's move the war to a bigger battlefield. Meanwhile, Jessica kept smiling in court. Her confidence painted across her face like armor. She had no idea the blade was already under her feet, waiting for her next step. Jessica met Brandon at an upscale bar that night, wearing a red dress Ethan had bought her years ago. Chris had a mic planted under the booth. "He is getting cocky," she said, sipping her wine. "He is playing the hero in court now." Brandon chuckled. "What can he do? You have the kid, the house, the sympathy card. He is a soldier, not a strategist." Jessica leaned in. "You said he would fold." "He will," Brandon replied. "Men like that always do. He is used to taking orders, not giving them." They clinked glasses. Brandon kissed her cheek. Ethan listened to it all from Chris's laptop the next morning. He did not blink. "She thinks I am following the script," he said. "Good." Chris looked over. "What now?" Ethan stood up, voice steady. "Now we cut the brakes and let the truth roll downhill." Ethan entered the courtroom like it was a war zone. Clean shave, pressed suit, calm eyes. Jessica sat across from him, looking flawless as always. She whispered something to her lawyer, then glanced back with a soft, smug smile. They were trying to win with optics. Ethan was coming in with evidence. The judge opened proceedings. Jessica's lawyer painted a picture of a struggling veteran, mentally unstable, emotionally distant, and unfit to raise a child alone. Then came their surprise, a fabricated psychologist's letter full of terms like aggression, emotional detachment, and combat-induced paranoia. Ethan had never met this therapist. When Ethan's lawyer rose, she held nothing back. "We have obtained recordings, audio and video, of Mrs. Marshall openly discussing manipulation of this court, falsifying emotional claims, and collaborating in potential financial misconduct. Your Honor, with your permission, we would like to submit these as evidence." Jessica's lawyer objected immediately. "Your Honor, those recordings were made without consent and may violate privacy laws." The judge frowned. "I will review the materials in chambers. For now, none of it is admitted." Ethan did not react, but inside, he felt the wall slam shut. Outside the courtroom, Jessica strutted past him, victorious for now. She leaned in close. "All that sneaky work, and the judge will not even look at it. Maybe next time bring a real strategy." "Oh wait, my bad. You were just the trigger guy." Ethan said nothing, but Chris was already 2 steps ahead. "They blocked the footage," Ethan said later that night. "They know we are right." "Good," Chris replied. "Let them think that. Next move is not about footage. It is about exposing her from the inside." Ethan sat in Lily's room after dinner. The little pink lamp still glowed next to the bed, casting soft shadows on the walls. Her drawings were still taped above the dresser. Crayons, stick figures, bright skies with crooked suns. But the room felt wrong now. Hollow, like someone had stolen the air from it. He picked up a storybook from the shelf, The Brave Bear. Her favorite. He remembered reading it to her over the phone from Iraq. She had been 3, barely speaking in full sentences, but she laughed every time he made the bears growl. That memory burned deeper than combat. He sat on the edge of her bed, flipping through the pages without seeing them. Jessica had tried to make him look like a ghost in his daughter's life, but she had no idea how hard he had fought to come home each time. No idea how many nights he stayed alive just for Lily's bedtime call. A soft knock broke the silence. It was Derek. "Surveillance came through," he said, holding out a USB. "This is the final nail." Ethan took it. "What is on it?" Brandon, in his own words, talking about money movement, the shell accounts, and how he is going to shift everything into your name once the divorce clears. Ethan stared at the small drive. "This is enough?" he asked. "Not enough to win," Derek replied. "Enough to destroy." Later that night, Ethan loaded the file and watched Brandon on screen, bragging, confident, reckless. The idiot still has no idea. His name is on the routing trail. He takes the fall. We walk. Ethan paused the video. His hands were still. His heart ice. It was time. The courtroom was packed on the final day of the preliminary hearings. Media had started trickling in. Whispers buzzed from the back row. Someone had leaked the audio. Someone wanted attention. Ethan did not care. Jessica sat calm and collected beside her lawyer, her expression unreadable. but her eyes kept darting toward Ethan. He sat alone, quiet, focused. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Then silence. Ethan's lawyer stood. Your Honor, in light of new evidence, we request to call a witness out of sequence. The judge raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? It is a sealed identity witness related to financial misconduct involving Mrs. Marshall and her business associate, Mr. Keller. Jessica's lawyer objected again. This is harassment, but the judge allowed it. A woman stepped into the room. Mid-30s. Nervous. Holding a folder. State your name. Amelia Cross. Your relationship to Mr. Brandon Keller? I was his executive assistant. For 4 years. What do you wish to present today? Amelia's hands trembled as she handed over the folder. Inside were internal emails, invoices, and statements. One thread revealed a direct message from Jessica. Just make sure the money circles through Ethan's name. If the audit hits, he gets burned, not us. Jessica paled. Ethan did not move. The judge flipped through the documents, then looked up slowly. We will recess. But Mrs. Marshall, I suggest you contact your attorney immediately regarding criminal liability. The silence after the judge stood up was thunderous. Jessica did not move. For the first time, she looked truly afraid. Not for her marriage, not for her reputation, but for her freedom. Jessica sat alone on the courtroom bench, her arms crossed tightly, lips pressed into a thin line. Her lawyer whispered beside her, frantic and low, but she was no longer listening. Ethan stayed seated at the table, calm, watching, waiting. Then the judge returned from recess. I have reviewed the new evidence, he said, tone flat, and I am approving the witness testimony for official record. But in light of the financial allegations, I am also opening the floor to a secondary witness tied to the same fraud trail. Jessica frowned. Another witness? She whispered to her lawyer. Who? A second woman entered through the side door. Tall, blonde, early 30s. Designer heels clicking softly. Brandon Keller's second mistress. The courtroom buzzed. Jessica froze. The woman took the stand, introduced herself, and dropped the first bomb. I was involved with Mr. Keller from July of last year until March. During that time, I was asked to sign off on fraudulent expenses, invoices, and funnel payments through a side entity. Mr. Keller said it was temporary. Until the money was pushed through a divorce settlement, he was managing. She turned toward Jessica. He never said your name directly, but he called you the one who thinks she is running the show. The gallery went silent. Jessica's face flushed red, panic and humiliation creeping into her expression like slow poison. Ethan watched her unravel, 1 inch at a time. The twist? Jessica thought she was the only affair, but Brandon played her the same way she tried to play Ethan. And now, Karma had walked into the courtroom in heels. That night, Jessica sat on the edge of her bed in a hotel room she had checked into alone. Her hands shook as she poured wine, spilling it onto the comforter. She cursed under her breath and threw the glass across the room. It shattered. Brandon was not answering her calls. Not one. His social media had been scrubbed clean, accounts locked down, photos gone. And her lawyer? Useless now. Talking about damage control. Talking about negotiating a plea before any charges stuck. Jessica stared at her reflection in the hotel mirror. Her perfect life, curated, controlled, rehearsed, was collapsing. All because of one man she thought was too emotionally broken to fight back. Meanwhile, Ethan stood outside his truck back home, looking up at the sky. Stars dimmed by Houston's haze. Lily was asleep in her room, safe. That was all he cared about now. Chris called. She is spiraling, he said. They are pulling her accounts apart. IRS is sniffing around Keller's shell company. Ethan took a breath. And the media? It is starting to catch wind. That witness. She sold her side to a journalist already. Ethan stared at his front porch. I am not doing this for revenge, he said. I am doing this to make sure she never gets to rewrite what she did. Chris paused. She will not. Not after this. Inside, Jessica lit a cigarette for the first time in years. Her hands trembled too much to hold it steady. The woman who thought she could script every outcome had forgotten how real consequences feel. 3 days later, Ethan walked into court wearing his army dress blues. The medals on his chest glinted under the fluorescence. The Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, his deployment pins. The silence that followed him was not just out of respect, it was recognition. Even Jessica's lawyer looked up from his papers and cleared his throat. Ethan stood before the judge without emotion. No grand speeches, no bitterness, just presence. The judge looked over the bench slowly. "Mr. Marshall, for the record, please state your service history." Ethan did. Tours, combat citations, life-risking evacuations under enemy fire. The courtroom was dead still. Then the judge turned to Jessica. "You called this man emotionally unfit, dangerous, absent. And yet, from all evidence and testimony, what I see is a man who has served this country with distinction and has conducted himself in this courtroom with greater integrity than any of the parties attempting to defame him." Jessica said nothing. Her throat bobbed. She was breathing through her mouth now, shallow and fast. The judge continued. "As of this moment, all custody requests filed by Mrs. Marshall are denied pending investigation into her financial conduct." Jessica's hand gripped the edge of the table. Ethan did not smile. He did not gloat. He just turned to his lawyer and nodded once. Outside the courthouse, cameras began to gather. Reporters shouted questions. Ethan walked straight past them, steady, calm, holding Lily's drawing in one hand. Crumpled a bit, but still clear. A stick figure in a blue uniform with the words, "My hero, my dad." Day 4 in court. Jessica looked like a ghost of herself. Pale foundation barely covering the stress creeping through her skin. The courtroom was half full, reporters scattered like vultures with notebooks. Everyone waited for the next blow. It came from the bench. The judge cleared his throat and looked down at a sheet of paper. "Before we move further, I find it necessary to place into the record a few facts regarding Mr. Ethan Marshall." Jessica shifted in her seat. The judge continued, voice clear, steady. "Ethan Marshall served 3 combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was awarded the Bronze Star for leading a civilian evacuation under direct enemy fire, saving 13 lives. He received the Purple Heart after sustaining injury while defending his unit from an ambush. His record includes 0 disciplinary actions, multiple commendations for leadership, and letters of character from commanding officers." He paused. The silence in the courtroom turned heavy. "I say this not to glamorize service," the judge added, "but because it is necessary context when evaluating the false claims that have been made against his character in this courtroom." Jessica's mouth parted slightly, but no sound came out. The judge leaned forward. "It is deeply troubling that such a record would be weaponized against a man simply because he returned from war with quieter eyes." That last line pierced the room. Ethan did not flinch. Jessica stared down at her lap, her nails digging into her palm. The judge finished. "We will proceed with a financial audit and review. But I want the court to understand, this is not a man to be discarded. This is a man who endured, survived, and returned. And in this courtroom, that matters." Jessica had nothing left to say. 2 hours after the hearing, Brandon Keller walked out of his office building, phone in one hand, sunglasses on, jacket slung over his shoulder. 2 unmarked vehicles rolled up behind him. He barely turned his head before a man in a black windbreaker stepped forward. "Brandon Keller?" the agent asked. Brandon blinked. "Yeah. Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, financial identity theft, and obstruction of justice." Brandon's smug expression cracked. "You have got to be kidding me." The cuffs snapped tight. Cameras flashed. Inside her hotel room, Jessica saw the footage first on Twitter. Breaking: CEO Brandon Keller arrested in financial fraud scandal connected to divorce case. She dropped the phone. Shaky hands reached for the remote. News was everywhere. Her name was not in the headlines yet, but it was coming. She knew it. She tried calling him. No answer. She called again, straight to voicemail. Outside, a news van pulled up across the street. Her pulse raced. She pulled the curtains shut, slammed the window closed, paced the room. He promised her protection. He promised this would never touch her. He lied. Jessica returned to the courthouse the next morning late and alone. No lawyer beside her. Just oversized sunglasses, a tight scarf, and a failed attempt at disappearing. But everyone saw her. Whispers followed her up the steps. Someone pointed. A reporter lifted a mic. She turned away, eyes wide, face tight. Inside, she sat down with her arms wrapped around herself. Not defiant now, cornered. Ethan arrived a few minutes later, calm, carrying a single folder. His lawyer nodded to him. The day's hearing would be brief, mostly procedural, but the air in the room felt thick. Jessica was called to the stand for clarification on a few financial filings. She stood up and cracked. "I need a break," she whispered. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Marshall, this is a basic inquiry." Jessica shook her head. I cannot. I was not the one handling the accounts. Brandon, he told me it was clean. Are you saying you were unaware of the fraudulent filings made under your name?" Jessica blinked hard. Her voice trembled. "I just signed what he gave me." The courtroom reacted, quiet murmurs, shifting in seats. Her lawyer stood, whispering urgently. But the damage was done. Outside, she staggered down the steps. Reporters were waiting. "Jessica, did you know Brandon Keller was committing fraud? Were you involved in falsifying financial documents? Is it true you attempted to frame your husband during custody hearings?" She tried to push through, head down. Then one voice cut through all the noise. "He deserved better than you." She stopped, looked up. It was Amelia, the witness. Jessica turned and walked faster, her heels clicking too loudly against stone. Her life? Fractured, public, falling. And it was only the beginning. The hearing room was silent except for the turning of pages. Jessica sat slouched, mascara faded, eyes locked forward but clearly unfocused. Her lawyer had dropped her that morning, citing client dishonesty, after the financial evidence went public. Ethan remained composed. The judge scanned through the latest report from Child Services, visitation records, school behavior notes, psychological assessments. Then, he cleared his throat. "This court finds that Mrs. Marshall has not demonstrated fitness for full custody at this time." Jessica's head jerked slightly. In light of the criminal investigation and public misconduct, temporary full custody is awarded to Mr. Marshall, with monitored visitation for Mrs. Marshall, pending further review. Jessica's breath caught, audible even from across the room. Ethan said nothing. He just nodded once. He had not come to win. He had come to protect. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, but he shielded Lily as she walked with him, backpack slung over her shoulder, small hand in his. "Are we going home?" she asked. He smiled gently. "Yeah, baby. We're going home." Jessica remained inside, alone on the bench, as people filed out. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes flicked to the exit. But no one looked back. The house felt warmer. Not because of the heat, but because Lily was back. Her shoes were in the hallway. Her cartoons played too loud. Her giggles filled the kitchen while Ethan made pancakes. Real life. Finally, that night, she crept into Ethan's room with her blanket. "Can I sleep here?" Ethan scooted over. "Always." She snuggled in close. "Is Mommy mad at me?" she whispered. Ethan paused. "No, sweetheart. She's just confused. Grown-ups mess up sometimes. She said you would forget about me." Ethan's chest tightened. He wrapped his arm around her and pulled her close. "I never forgot. I was just getting things ready to bring you back." She closed her eyes. "You came back from the war, and then came back for me too." He looked at the ceiling for a long moment. "Yes," he whispered, "and I would do it again." In the hallway, the light from her bedroom was still on. He walked in, picked up her drawing from the floor. Another new one. This time, a bear holding a shield. She had written, "My dad is my hero because he fights and he hugs." He stood in the doorway for a while. He had been trained to break through doors, rescue hostages, disarm bombs. But this moment, was the only mission that ever truly mattered. Jessica returned to court looking worse than ever. Sunglasses again. Hollow cheeks. Rumors swirled that she had been dropped by 2 attorneys in 1 week. The judge announced, "We are allowing one more character witness before reviewing custody arrangements long-term." A door opened. Jessica looked up and froze. Her mother walked in. Grace Morgan, 65, prim, tight bun, stone-faced. Jessica stood. What the hell is she doing here? "Sit down, Mrs. Marshall," the judge ordered. Grace took the stand. "I am here because I believe my granddaughter deserves to be raised in a home where truth and safety exist." The court hushed. Grace continued. "Jessica has always been brilliant, but from childhood, she learned how to control, to manipulate, to charm her way out of everything. Her father and I enabled it. We thought she would grow out of it." She looked over at Jessica. "You never did." Jessica's face went white. "I warned her not to do this to Ethan," Grace said. "He was the first good man she had ever known. And when she started lying, fabricating things about his mental health, I had to step in." The judge leaned forward. "And you are saying this voluntarily?" "I came here on my own. I love my daughter, but I will not let her destroy someone else to protect her own lies." Jessica stood up. "You were never a real mother to me. You never wanted a mother. You wanted a mirror." The silence after that was unbearable. Grace stood and walked out of the room. No tears, no breakdown, just the truth. And for the first time, Jessica had no defense. 2 days after Grace Morgan's testimony, Ethan received a plain envelope in his mailbox. No return address, just his name written in sharp block letters. Inside, a single USB drive. He plugged it into Chris's laptop at the garage later that night. The folder contained phone recordings, clean, sharp audio of Brandon Keller talking to a third party. Not Jessica, not the assistant, someone else. "She really thinks I love her," Brandon's voice said, cocky as ever. "Nah, she is just leverage. A pawn. As soon as her part clears, I will have enough dirt to flip it on her too. Let the wife take the fall, clean the trail, and move on." Chris paused the playback. This was recent. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Sent from who? Chris checked the metadata. VPN routed. Hidden IP. Could be anyone. Could be that second mistress. Could be someone inside Keller's company. Or someone with a conscience. Ethan muttered. This was not just leverage now. It was evidence of intent. Brandon never cared about Jessica. She was just a temporary shield. Another pawn to place between him and a prison sentence. She thought she was building a new life, Ethan said coldly. But she was building a grave. And now? He had the shovel. The win was close. Custody, truth, public favor, all tilting toward Ethan. But it did not feel like a victory. At night, while Lily slept and the house was quiet, Ethan stood alone in the kitchen, coffee untouched, head down. He thought of how it all started. Love, sacrifice, the nights he called home from war zones just to hear Jessica's voice. She had not always been like this. Or maybe she had. Maybe war did not change him. Maybe it just stripped everything down until only truth remained. Chris arrived later that night, sensing the weight in the air. "You good?" he asked. Ethan shrugged. "It feels like I won. But I feel nothing." "That is because you did not want to destroy her. You just wanted her to stop destroying you." Ethan nodded slowly. "I never set out to ruin her," he said. "I just needed the truth to speak louder than her lies." Chris put a hand on his shoulder. "It is speaking, loud and clear." But deep down, Ethan knew the fight was not over. People like Jessica do not collapse easily. They claw, and he could feel the storm building again. News vans now lined the sidewalk outside the courthouse. A local Houston station had picked up the scandal, and the rest followed quickly. Headlines: decorated veteran dragged into fraud scheme by wife and CEO. Hero father wins temporary custody amid scandal. Public turns on corporate power couple. Jessica tried to control the narrative. Released a statement through a PR firm denying everything. Blamed Brandon. Claimed she was misled and manipulated. But the public had already chosen a side. Ethan stepped out of court that morning with Lily's hand in his. A reporter called out, "Mr. Marshall, do you feel vindicated?" He paused, looked down at his daughter. "I feel like I have a lot more work to do. But today she's safe. And that matters." Inside, Jessica watched the clip from her hotel room TV. Alone. Another alert hit her phone. Brandon had been denied bail. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find Derek standing there, casual, composed. "What do you want?" she snapped. He handed her a folder. Inside, a settlement agreement. "We are giving you one last option," he said. "Sign this. Walk away with dignity. Or keep fighting, and we will expose everything." She looked up at him, shaking. "Is this how he wins?" Derek's voice was ice. "No. This is how you stop losing." It came unexpectedly. A phone call from the county jail. Brandon Keller, recorded call, legally admissible, triggered by keyword monitoring. Ethan's lawyer got a copy. "Yeah, I screwed up. She thought I loved her. Please. I needed someone dumb enough to sign papers, take emotional damage, and keep Ethan distracted." Worked for a while. But once the court got involved, game over. Ethan listened to it twice, then emailed it to the judge's office, tagged to the fraud case. Brandon had confessed, not just to using Jessica, but to intentionally setting up Ethan to take the legal hit. Jessica had not just betrayed him. She had been played just as deeply. The irony? The same way she tried to ruin Ethan, Brandon did to her. Chris looked over the evidence. "You could end this now. Finish her in court next week." Ethan exhaled. Long, steady. "No," he said. "Let her end herself." And based on everything unraveling, that was exactly what she was about to do. Ethan returned home from court to find an envelope on the front porch. No stamp, no name, just taped to the door. He opened it at the kitchen table, careful, cautious. Inside was a handwritten letter. Jessica's handwriting, neat, looping, fake emotion bleeding through every line. "I never meant for things to go this far. I was scared. I felt abandoned. You were always so quiet, so distant. I needed something real, and I made a mistake. No confession, no ownership, just blame coated in guilt-flavored frosting. I hope one day you can forgive me. Not for me, but for Lily." Ethan crumpled the letter mid-read and dropped it in the trash. It was not an apology. It was damage control. Jessica was not sorry. She was preparing a new defense, one that painted her as a confused woman manipulated by men. She wanted leniency, sympathy, a softer landing. Chris looked at the shredded paper in the bin and muttered, "She is testing your restraint." "She will not like the answer," Ethan replied. 2 days later, Ethan's lawyer received an urgent notice. Jessica had filed a protective order against Ethan, claiming she felt unsafe. Claimed he had made indirect threats and had military-grade surveillance, tracking her every move. The court rejected the motion. There was no evidence, no pattern, no police reports, nothing real. But it was a move designed to stall the fraud investigation, to buy time. Ethan met Chris and Derek that night in the garage. "She is not just trying to defend herself," Chris said. "She is trying to turn this into a PTSD case again. She is going to play the trauma card." Ethan laughed bitterly. "I never asked for sympathy," he said. "She weaponized what I survived." Derek added, "And when that fails, she is going to go nuclear." Jessica, meanwhile, sat in her hotel room with a glass of wine and a burner phone. She dialed a number. A voice answered. "Mail. Stern. I need it gone," she whispered. "All of it. The records. The accounts. Anything with my name on it." The voice replied, "Expensive." "I do not care," she said. And she hung up. Sunday came quiet. Lily helped Ethan make pancakes. They danced in the living room to old 80s music, barefoot and smiling. For a moment, it felt like peace had arrived. No lawyers, no cameras, no tension. But Ethan's instincts, sharpened by years in the field, would not let him relax. He knew what calm like this meant. A final strike was coming. Later that afternoon, he sat alone on the porch while Lily napped inside. Chris pulled up in his truck, holding his phone. "You are going to want to see this," he said. On the screen was a financial report. The funds from Keller's company, $18,000, had just been rerouted through a closed account tied to Jessica. She was cleaning the paper trail, erasing herself from the system. Fast. She is prepping to disappear, Chris said, or blow the whole thing up. Ethan stood, looking out at the yard. She has nothing left to lose, he said. That makes her the most dangerous kind of person. Monday morning. The Keller Dynamics office building was surrounded by yellow tape and flashing lights. Fire trucks, police cars, hazmat vans. The building had been set on fire just before dawn. Sprinklers had stopped it from burning to the ground, but the damage was significant. Records destroyed. Documents gone. Surveillance footage pulled. Jessica was seen entering the building just 30 minutes before the blaze triggered alarms. By noon, her face was all over the news. Suspect identified in Keller office arson. Jessica Morgan Marshall. Ethan watched the broadcast from Chris's garage. She actually did it, Chris whispered. She burned it all. Ethan nodded slowly. She thought if she destroyed the evidence, she could rewrite the story again. But now it is federal, Derek added. She is done. Not just divorced. Not just exposed. Criminally charged. But Ethan knew something others did not. Jessica had one more card to play, and she had not laid it down yet. Jessica was arrested 48 hours after the Keller building fire. Arson, destruction of evidence, tampering with an ongoing federal investigation. She looked dazed as she was escorted out of her hotel in handcuffs, still in a silk robe and sandals. Her hair was tangled, her eyes empty. The world watched it live on the evening news. But the twist came in the booking room. Jessica did not ask for a lawyer. She asked for a reporter from a local news outlet. And when they arrived, she gave them everything. I was manipulated by Brandon Keller and abandoned by my husband, who has spun this story to make himself look like a hero. He staged this. All of it. He was never the victim. The video aired just before midnight. Jessica was on camera, calm but visibly worn. She looked into the lens like she had been preparing for this moment. She claimed Ethan had used military influence to hack her, intimidate witnesses, and control the narrative. It spread fast, faster than truth. The internet split in half. Some called her a liar trying to play victim again. Others questioned everything. And for a moment, the tide wavered. Ethan watched it on Chris's phone. She's playing martyr now? Chris muttered. She's not playing, Ethan replied. She's desperate enough to believe it. But Ethan was not worried, because Jessica just gave him the final permission he needed. Total exposure. No holding back. The next morning, the federal indictment dropped. Jessica Marshall, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud, 1 count of attempted financial identity theft, 1 count of arson, 2 counts of obstruction of justice. Her bail was denied. She was officially listed as a flight risk. Ethan sat with his attorney, watching the press conference. The lead prosecutor was clear. Mrs. Marshall attempted to destroy evidence and shift public narrative through manipulative tactics. But we have timestamps, digital forensics, and a confession from her co-conspirator under oath. The evidence is overwhelming. The prosecutor paused. We also want to acknowledge Mr. Ethan Marshall, a decorated Army veteran, who endured character attacks and resisted retaliation. Without his integrity, this case may have gone a very different way. Ethan did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply nodded. Lily sat beside him, drawing in her notebook. A sun, a house, a bear in a cape. He looked at it quietly. She said, "This one is you. You're saving the house." He nodded again, softer this time. "Yeah, baby. I guess I am." That night, Ethan wrote a letter. Not to the court. Not to Jessica. To Lily. A letter for her to read when she turned 18. He wrote about war, not with guns, but inside homes. About strength that comes not from fighting, but from knowing when not to. About betrayal and staying rooted in truth even when people try to drown you in lies. One day, you'll ask what happened to your mother. And when you do, I won't lie. I'll tell you she made choices that hurt people, but I'll also tell you she loved you. Because that's the truth too. He ended the letter with a simple line. You were always my reason. Always. No matter what she did. He folded it carefully and sealed it in a box marked Lily for later. Then he sat in the hallway outside her room, just listening to her sleep. Not guarding, just being there. Because finally, there was peace. 6 weeks later, the courtroom was full. Media, observers, lawyers. Jessica entered in a beige prison jumpsuit, wrists chained. No makeup, no game face. Just a woman stripped of every illusion she had ever worn. Ethan sat in the gallery, calm, steady, watching. The judge read the charges. Then the sentence. 15 years. No parole until 7. Jessica blinked, but showed no emotion. Her eyes swept the room, avoided Ethan, landed briefly on a photo of Lily on the prosecution table. Her shoulders slumped. She had lost everything. Her career, her child, her identity, all because she tried to rewrite the truth. As the bailiff moved her toward the exit, she looked once, just once, at Ethan. He looked back, not with hate, not with revenge, just clarity, because it was never about breaking her. It was about setting himself free. The sun poured through the kitchen window, catching dust in the air like glitter. The house was finally quiet, not empty, just peaceful. Ethan stood at the stove flipping pancakes. The scent of cinnamon filled the air. Lily sat at the table, coloring a page with bright pinks and blues. You want chocolate chips in these? He asked. Extra, she grinned. He smiled. Simple things. Normal things. She handed him a piece of folded paper while he plaited the first stack. I made you something. He wiped his hands, unfolded it carefully. A crayon drawing. Him in uniform, a heart on his chest, Lily standing beside him with a giant smile. Underneath it, she had written in her careful, big letters, I'm proud of you, Dad. Ethan stared at the words. They hit harder than any courtroom victory, any legal win. This was the real verdict. You are the bravest person I know, she added, mouth full of pancake. Even when you were scared. He looked at her, voice low. I was scared, but you made me strong. She nodded like she already knew. He walked over and kissed the top of her head. Thank you for trusting me, even when it got messy. She looked up. Heroes get messy too. You still win in the end. He laughed through the lump in his throat. Yeah, they were still standing. And that meant they had already won. A month later, Ethan stood in front of a community center, adjusting the collar on a simple black t-shirt. A small logo sat over his heart. Homefront rebuilt. Inside, a group of veterans, men and women, sat in folding chairs, scattered between coffee and quiet glances. Ethan walked to the front. No podium, just his voice. I spent a long time thinking strength meant silence, he said. That talking about pain meant weakness. I was wrong. The room leaned in. I was lied to, manipulated, dragged through court, and nearly erased from my daughter's life. But what hurt more was how long I believed I had to go through it alone. He paused. Someone in the back nodded slowly. That ends here. For all of us. Applause broke out. Not loud, but real. Afterward, one young vet approached him. That story, that was yours. Ethan nodded. I almost walked away from everything, the man said. But, I don't know. Hearing it, you being here, it made me stay. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. Then it was worth it. Outside, Chris leaned against the truck, watching. You're building something good here, he said. Ethan looked back at the center, then up at the sky. I think it's time we stop surviving and start living. The house looked the same from the outside. White porch, green shutters, same oak trees stretching over the driveway. But inside, everything had changed. The bedroom was repainted, warm gray. Jessica's photos were gone. In their place, Lily's framed drawings. Color, light, presence. The kitchen had new chairs. Ethan built them himself. A matching set for two. In the hallway, the old family portrait had been replaced by a new one, Ethan and Lily, at a fall festival. Her face painted like a tiger. Him smiling, real and unguarded. He stood in the doorway of her room that night, watching her sleep. No monsters in the closet anymore. Just stuffed animals, soft blankets, and peace. He went back downstairs, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and stepped out onto the porch. The wind was light. The stars clear. This was not the life he imagined. It was better. It was earned. And for the first time in years, Ethan Marshall felt like a man living in his own home, not fighting for a piece of it. The call came late. Ethan was in the garage, sanding down a piece of old cedar for Lily's new bookshelf. His phone buzzed once, unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something in his gut told him to answer. Hello. Silence. Then the soft rustle of static. Then her voice. Ethan. He froze, hand pausing mid-motion. Jessica. I only get one call a week now, she said quietly. And I chose this one. Ethan leaned against the bench, jaw tight. Why? I do not know, she whispered. Maybe I thought you'd yell. Maybe I wanted that. Maybe I just wanted to hear your voice. He said nothing. She continued, voice cracked and stripped of performance. I was wrong. About you. About everything. I thought if I controlled the story, I could survive it. But I was never in control, was I? Ethan breathed in deep. You were in control, Jessica. That was the problem. Silence. Then she said it. I am sorry. Not just for the lies. For not seeing you. For erasing you. His eyes welled, but he kept his voice steady. You do not get to fix it with a phone call. I know. You still have a daughter, he added. If you really mean any of this, start there. Start by being honest with her one day. I will, she said. I promise. The call ended. Ethan stood there, still. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. Some wounds heal loud. With tears, fights, fireworks. Others heal in silence. Ethan's healing came in early mornings and routine. Packing Lily's lunch. Teaching her to ride a bike. Falling asleep on the couch during movie nights. Smiling when she laughed. Peace, he realized, was not a destination. It was a choice. A decision. Every damn day. He still had scars. Triggers. Nights where dreams turned to noise. But those no longer owned him. One afternoon, as they raked leaves in the front yard, Lily looked up suddenly. Do you think people can change? Ethan glanced at her, thoughtful. I think they can try, he said. But not everyone does. She nodded, like that made perfect sense. Then she pointed at the clouds. That one looks like a sword. He laughed. Yeah, I see it. She smiled. And for the first time since all this began, Ethan felt something deeper than survival. He felt peace. Not quiet. Not perfect. But real. Final custody hearing. Ethan wore a simple navy shirt. No uniform. No medals. He did not need them anymore. Jessica appeared remotely, from prison. Her eyes tired, but her voice even. I give up all parental rights, she said to the court. No fight. I just want her safe. The judge looked at Ethan. You've done everything right, Mr. Marshall. Lily is lucky to have you. Ethan nodded once. No, I'm lucky to have her. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered one last time. But Ethan did not stop for questions. He picked up Lily from school. They went for ice cream. As they sat on a park bench, the sun dipping behind the trees, she leaned against him. Are you okay now? She asked. Ethan looked down at her and smiled gently. I think I've always been okay. I just forgot for a while. She rested her head on his shoulder. And in that quiet, glowing moment, Ethan Marshall was not a victim, not a soldier, not a survivor. He was a father, a hero, a whole man. And now, one final question for you. If you were in Ethan's shoes, would you have handled it the same way? Or would you have burned everything down? Tell me in the comments. And while you are there, let me know where in the world you are watching from. I want to know who is riding this emotional journey with us. If this story hit your heart, do me a favor. Like it, share it with someone who loves thrillers, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next story. We will meet again soon. In another epic revenge, another heart-pounding thriller, another ride you will not forget. Until then, take care of your peace. Take care of your truth. And take care of yourself. See you in the next one.